Even Framework is hiking their prices. Now you can knock Tua print on that thing, and Windows, Microsoft promises that it's going to be the best for gaming. You just have to...
October 2025. Valve releases Steam's monthly hardware survey. The data is devastating for Microsoft. Linux gaming usage hit 6.8%, up from 1.4% 2 years ago. That's 386% growth. But the real story is in the comments section of Steam. Thousands of gamers posting the same message. Switch to Linux this month because Windows 11 keeps interrupting my games. The thread has 89,000 upvotes. It's the most upvoted post in Steam history. And it represents something Microsoft never thought possible. Gamers, the most loyal Windows demographic, are abandoning the platform en masse. PC gaming was supposed to be Windows' unbreakable moat, the one segment where Windows dominance seemed permanent. Windows 11 destroyed that in 3 years. The performance problems that started it. The gaming community noticed Windows 11's performance issues immediately. Digital Foundry's comprehensive testing in March 2025 showed the problem clearly. Same hardware. Windows 10 versus Windows 11. 47 games tested. Windows 11 averaged 11.4% lower frame rates. Every single game performed worse. Counter-Strike 2 dropped from 340 frames per second to 285 frames per second. That's 55 frames per second lost. In competitive gaming, that's unacceptable. But it's not just frame rates. Frame time consistency is worse on Windows 11. More stuttering, more hitching. Input lag is measurably higher. Digital Foundry tested input latency across 15 games. Windows 11 averaged 8.3 milliseconds more latency than Windows 10. That's the time between clicking your mouse and seeing the result on screen. In fast-paced shooters, 8 milliseconds is the difference between hitting a shot and missing. Windows 11 is making gamers measurably worse at games. The reason is background overhead. Windows 11 runs more services, Copilot monitoring everything, Defender scanning more aggressively, telemetry uploading constantly. All of this steals CPU cycles from games. Task Manager shows it clearly. Windows 10 idles at 2 to 3% CPU usage, Windows 11 at 6 to 8%. That overhead doesn't disappear when you launch a game. It's always there, always competing for resources, always degrading performance. Gamers did their own testing, confirmed Digital Foundry's results, posted benchmarks to YouTube. The evidence is overwhelming. Windows 11 is objectively worse for gaming than Windows 10. The forced update disasters.
Microsoft might be bleeding Windows customers faster than any of us imagined. There's been no shortage of controversy surrounding the not-door operating system, spyware, ads, bad updates, and the like, and while there's been a vocal opposition complaining about these things, the operating system percentages have mostly stayed the same. Linux and macOS might be getting a few...
But performance is just one problem. Forced updates are destroying gaming experiences. Windows 11 updates more aggressively than Windows 10, ignores user preferences, restarts without permission, and it always happens at the worst possible times. Marcus Chen is a competitive Valorant player. He's in the final round of a tournament qualifier. The match determines if his team advances to regionals. It's 12-12, sudden death. He's clutching a 1 versus 2. Then Windows 11 decides it's time to update. Full screen notification. Updates are ready to install. Your PC will restart in 15 minutes. The notification blocks his screen. He dies. His team loses. They're eliminated from the tournament because Windows 11 decided updates matter more than his game. This story repeats thousands of times daily. Streamers mid-broadcast, esports players in matches, casual gamers in raids. Windows 11 interrupts without caring. The active hours setting that's supposed to prevent this doesn't work. Windows updates anyway. Gamers are learning they can't trust Windows 11. Can't rely on it not interrupting important moments. That's breaking the fundamental relationship. Gaming requires an OS that stays out of the way. Windows 11 constantly gets in the way. The Steam Deck proof of concept. But the catalyst for mass migration was Steam Deck. Valve's handheld gaming PC launched in 2022. Runs Linux, specifically Steam OS 3.0 based on Arch Linux. Gamers bought Steam Deck. Discovered something shocking. Linux gaming works really well. better than they expected, often better than Windows. Steam Deck's success proved gaming on Linux is viable. Valve's Proton compatibility layer runs thousands of Windows games on Linux. The Steam Deck verified checkmark shows which games work. Currently, 8,742 games verified. Another 3,411 playable. That's 12,153 games that work on Linux. Out of Steam's library of approximately 50,000 games, 24% are verified working on Linux. And the percentage grows weekly. And performance? Often better than Windows 11. Same game, same hardware. Linux getting 5 to 15% higher frame rates, lower latency, better frame times. Gamers are posting benchmarks proving Linux outperforms Windows 11 for gaming. That's the death sentence for Windows gaming dominance. When the alternative is faster and free, why stay on Windows? The anti-cheat problem solving itself.
Windows 11 is losing one of its key features, and I'm not surprised. Microsoft has just announced that they'll be ending the support for running Android apps on Windows 11 in 2025. Back when Android app support was first announced for Windows 11, people were very excited. I mean, you're telling me I can play Subway Surfer on my Windows PC? Well, when it finally launched, most of us were disappointed because, first of all, the apps weren't actually running natively on your PC, but instead, the whole Android environment was virtual, kind of like BlueStacks. And secondly, the app support was lacking because it used the Amazon App Store instead of the Google Play Store. This also meant that you needed to create an Amazon account, which was kind of annoying, but more importantly, many popular apps just weren't there. So while some were shocked about this news, I for one am not surprised at all because, to put it bluntly, running Android apps on Windows 11 was not good.
The main barrier to Linux gaming was anti-cheat. Games like Valorant, Fortnite, Apex Legends use kernel-level anti-cheat that doesn't work on Linux. For years, this kept gamers on Windows. If your main game doesn't work on Linux, you stay on Windows. But two things changed. First, some anti-cheat companies added Linux support. Easy Anti-Cheat and BattlEye, used by hundreds of games, now support Linux. Game developers just need to enable it. Many are. Elden Ring works on Linux. Halo Infinite works. Dead by Daylight works. Major titles adding Linux support because Steam Deck's success proved there's a market. Second, gamers are switching games. Valorant doesn't work on Linux? Play Counter-Strike 2. It works perfectly. Apex Legends blocking Linux? Play the finals. It works. Gamers are choosing games based on Linux compatibility. Games that block Linux are losing players. Game developers are noticing the calculus is changing. Block Linux and lose growing market share. Or enable Linux support and keep players. The content creator migration. Streamers and YouTube creators are migrating to Linux publicly and documenting the process. Linus Tech Tips did a series, Linux Gaming Challenge. Linus and Luke used Linux exclusively for gaming for 30 days. Expected it to be painful. Found it mostly worked fine. Linus concluded, "I'm genuinely surprised. 80% of what I want to play works. Performance is often better. The only reason to stay on Windows is inertia." The series got 12 million total views. Millions of gamers watched and thought, if Linus can game on Linux, maybe I can too. The demonstration effect is powerful. Seeing popular creators succeed on Linux makes it seem achievable. Smaller streamers are doing it too, switching to Linux, streaming from Linux, showing their audiences it works. One mid-sized streamer, 8,000 followers, switched to Arch Linux in August. Posted tutorial videos showing his setup. His audience followed. He estimates 400 of his viewers switched to Linux because he demonstrated it. Multiply that across hundreds of creators. That's thousands of gamers migrating because creators showed the path. The competitive scene accepting Linux. Even professional esports is opening to Linux. Some tournaments now allow Linux systems. DreamHack allowed Linux in their CS2 tournaments. ESL evaluating. The resistance is breaking down. For years, tournaments required Windows. Not anymore. Partially because Steam Deck proved Linux works. Partially because Windows 11 is unreliable. Tournaments don't want players dealing with forced updates during events. Linux offers stability Windows 11 can't match. Professional teams are testing Linux. FaZe Clan ran a pilot. 5 players using pop_os for practice. Performance was equivalent or better. No update interruptions, lower system overhead. The pilot was successful enough, they're expanding. More players testing Linux. If professional teams adopt Linux, millions of aspiring players follow. The influencer effect in esports is massive. The numbers Microsoft can't ignore. Steam's survey shows Linux at 6.8% and rising, but that's just users who took the survey. Actual Linux usage is likely higher. Some estimates put Linux gaming at 8 to 10% of active Steam users. That's 10 to 13 million gamers, gone from Windows, playing on Linux, not coming back. The growth rate is accelerating. Linux gaming was 1.4% in October 2023, 3.2% in October 2024, 6.8% in October 2025. If growth continues, Linux could hit 12 to 15% by October 2026. At that point, game developers must support Linux. Can't ignore 15 to 20 million users. Once developers target Linux directly, the remaining barriers disappear. Linux becomes fully viable for gaming. Windows loses its last advantage. Microsoft's gaming revenue is at risk. Where this ends. November 2025. Microsoft faces reality. PC gaming is no longer Windows exclusive. Linux is viable, growing rapidly. Performance is competitive or better. Game compatibility is excellent and improving. Barriers are falling, and Windows 11 is actively pushing gamers away with performance problems and forced interruptions. Bill Gates understands what this means. Gaming was the segment that kept power users on Windows. Gaming drove hardware sales that included Windows licenses. Gaming created network effects, gamers helping friends with Windows, recommending Windows PCs. Lose gaming, lose the influencer network, lose the high-value users who drive ecosystem growth, not slowly, fast. 6.8% of Steam users on Linux. Projections show 12 to 15% within a year. Gamers discovered they don't need Windows, they're leaving, and they're not coming back. That's why Microsoft is losing the gaming crowd. That's why Bill Gates is panicking, because the segment that kept Windows dominant is abandoning the platform, and Microsoft has no plan to stop it.